Good evening, folks, and welcome back to another episode of the ARCA Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Colby Evans, a.k.a. Starting Park Car from Twitter. Your old pal here, and we're here to talk about some fun ARCA action, as we usually are on the usual Tuesday nights or Thursday nights. Again, whatever day of the week we can do this show. This past weekend's race was at the famed Milwaukee Mile. Again, always great to see the racing still going on Milwaukee, a track that, has been kind of iffy on whether, it might go out of business, and whether it's going to continue racing. So it's just great to see racing back at Milwaukee Mile in general. If you guys notice, I'm not as energetic as I usually am. Been under the weather the last couple days. If you hear my voice cracking like it just did, I apologize. I'm going to try to get through this podcast the best I can for you guys. But we might not be here for as long as we usually are. But you guys know the drill. Follow me on social media, Starting Parker on Twitter. Like and subscribe to the channel. Like and subscribe to the channel for all notifications. So you guys never miss a podcast when we go live, of course. And, of course, check out theracingexperts.com for all NASCAR media-related content. So, this past weekend's race at Milwaukee, I was going to go to this race. It was originally on my planned schedule at the beginning of the year. Unfortunately, financials weren't in my favor, unfortunately, to go to this race, sadly. Because I was going to go to this race, I was going to help out Brad Smith for the ARCA race, and I was going to help out Timmy Hill on the truck side. That was the original plan, and unfortunately, some financials came in the way. It was either go to Milwaukee or go to Kansas in a couple weeks, and obviously, I chose to go to Kansas. It was okay. I mean, it was definitely an okay race. The one thing I will say is it is definitely starting to get noticeable, and I don't know if we did notice it this much in the past couple of years. I don't even know if the 2021 season saw it this much, but this was one of the few races this season that I can honestly say I personally did not enjoy. And, and that's okay. For people who call me an ARCA guy who always says ARCA is the greatest series ever, frankly, I think ARCA has not had the best two races. Springfield was not very good, and I didn't think this race was overly special either. Clearly, JGR's got this track figured out. And the 450 laps that we have ran at Milwaukee, that's the last three ARCA races combined, Joe Gibbs has led 403 of 450 laps. They have won with three different drivers, which in and itself is pretty impressive. But I also do attribute that to, at the end of the day, Joe Gibbs Racing is one of the very few teams that actually has somewhat notes going into this race. Now, so does Shane Huffman. He's actually made laps at the Milwaukee Mile. And obviously he can put that into his setup. But Joe Gibbs Racing, they got all this stuff on file. All the years that they were going to the Milwaukee Mile and the Busch Series. I think maybe some Cup cars have run tests there. Maybe, I don't know for sure, but all those years of races that they've had, Joe Gibbs Racing, they still got a notebook of notes on Milwaukee. It was just kind of stored in the files, as they say. They don't usually throw away their notes. So I'm sure there were some leftover notes because, no matter what Venturini brings, all three of these races, they just have not been able to beat Joe Gibbs Racing. And that was the same thing we saw last Sunday. William Sawalich, he dominated. Spoiler alert, he dominated. Shocker. He had 141 of the 150 laps. Jesse Love was the only other car that could even contend with him. Going over the entry list, not as big as the last couple years, but still a solid entry list overall. We did have some oddball entries that we don't normally see. We had Ron Vandermeer Jr. running his own 10 car under Andy Hillenberg's team. We had Dallas Fruway returning for a start in park. Always good to see Dallas, even if it is just for a start in park. Rick Rettig Tackman, the son of Rick Tackman Jr., was running the 48 for Brad Smith and had arguably one of the best races of Brad Smith Motorsports' tenure. We had Grant Enfinger, who was there for the truck race. He ran the 97 for Cody Robar's team. This also was an East race, so we had LeVar Scott, Jake Finch, Zachary Tinkle, Rita Goulet, and Sean Hingorani in this race as well, along with Luke Fenhaus. So overall, a pretty solid entry list. The one thing I did want to talk about was Rick Reddig Tackman. Now, this kid is the son of Rick Tackman Jr. Rick Tackman Jr. was a former crew member for the late. He's still alive, but the team is not. The team is no longer active. Hickson Motorsports. Remember Wayne Hickson's team? They were an ARCA team that ran the 2 and the 3 and the 64 cars. They were a long, long time ARCA team in the mid-2000s, shut down in the late 2010s, mainly just because of the times. They couldn't afford the new Ilmores. They really couldn't afford the new composite bodies. It's what put a lot of teams out of business, like the Bashams, Hickson. They just couldn't keep up with the times and decided to close up shop. And that's understandable. That happens to a lot of race teams. And unfortunately for ARCA teams, that really hurt them, especially was those new bodies that that you had to be forced to buy at this point. You can't run a steel body anymore. But point is Rick Tackman was a former Hickson crew member, and his son, Rick Reddig Tackman, would be driving the 48 for Brad Smith. Slight story time as we go here. So Rick Tackman runs a shop, I believe it's called Renegade Race Cars. And that is where Brad Smith's Ford was built. And that is also where Brad Smith's Chevy was redone. I posted some photos online. Brad's car before this race got a new nose. Thankfully, that last nose was hanging on by a thread. New right front fender. And most importantly, some proper work needed to be done on the suspension, the radiator, the engine. Got a good look through. The car, it looked fantastic. The black nose, the fresh black nose they put on the car. The black nose actually looks really good with the red scheme. They put new yellow, what's the side skirts. Probably the best looking car I've seen out of Brad Smith Motorsports in a long time. And it was just so good to see. Now, Brad's other Ford is also being built in there, so shout out. If you guys want to know where Brad's getting this done, it's not at his own garage. He is building this. He's building this with the Renegade Race Cars Group and Rick Tackman in his shop. Just goes to show you, man, for the people who say that Brad Smith doesn't try, well, that's stupid. He does. He just tries with what he can with what money he has. And then, of course, Kimmel Racing, they're trying to build owner points for the East Series next year. And they're also trying to stay in that top 20 bonus that we've talked about in the main division, which is why we saw Brad Smith run the 69 for Will Kimmel. Now, of course, it's also to keep Brad. I don't live behind Iowa Speedway. I live about 45 minutes south of Iowa Speedway, for people who didn't know that. Brad was driving the 69 for Kimmel Racing. Now, this actually was Brad's Ford, simply with a beautiful, I love it. It's the ultimate number job. So basically you just had Brad's number 48. They just put a 69 over the 48. Didn't bother covering the number or nothing. You got to love it. So the 69, this was, like I said, mainly to keep Kimmel in the top 20 for the owner's bonus, a little bit of extra money that the teams get at the end of the year. And obviously any extra dollar goes a long way for these ARCA teams. It was just kind of a favor. Obviously, the Kimmels, they help out a lot of these lower-tier ARCA teams with what they need. They're good friends with Brad. I love Will Kimmel. Nothing ever bad to say about Will Kimmel or Bill Kimmel. I just wish the family could get along a little better. I mean, obviously, I can't get into that, but gotta love the Kimmels. Good people. Really good people. So Brad actually ran 2 cars this weekend. I knew the 69 was going to start in park. Maybe there was a slight chance he was going to run the distance. But also Brad was probably going to start in park to help out on the 48. Other thing is, of course, we had Dale Shear, John Garrett, Gus Dean. He was back in the 55. But like I said, nobody was going to catch the 18 and the 20. Now, the practice results, they had a 50-minute practice session. Sawalich was the only car to top the 124-mile-per-hour brackets in practice. Unshockingly, it was him, Jesse Love. Toyota, again, they reigned supreme at top 4. Grant Enfinger, honestly, for the kind of capable team that CR7 Motorsports is, the fact that Grant Enfinger ran as good as he did is pretty impressive. It shows you just how much raw talent the guy has. Not the best run for Andres Perez de Lara throughout this whole race. He was only 10th in practice. Frankie Muniz, the lack of funding really seems to be hurting this 30 team. There were questions on if Frankie was going to finish this season out. It was kind of just said on this podcast, like a lot of us kind of said that. A lot of us kind of said there's no way that ARCA is going to give up on this publicity. Somehow Frankie Muniz is going to make it to every race. And while he has, yes, he's made it to every race, we've also noticed that the car has been unsponsored. Just having the giant Ford logo, that's not sponsorship dollars. They're just on the car. Like there's no sponsorship dollars coming in from that. So, and I feel like it's noticeable. I feel like it's noticeable with how the 30 car has been performing. It's definitely, even for what the 30 car team I feel like is capable of, without that sufficient sponsorship, there's only so much they can do when it comes to motors. Obviously they have enough money for tires, but there's only so much they can do when it comes to motors. And at the end of the day, in the ARCA series, the motors are really what a lot of these races comes down to. Because if you don't have those fresh Ilmores that changing in weekly, like, the 18 and the 20 they're changing Ilmores every single week. But some of these teams are changing Ilmores maybe every 4 races. If you're doing that, you're not even going to win. You're not. You got to be able to afford to change the Ilmores every single week. And a 30 team without sufficient sponsorship, they can't. And maybe that's what it's attributing to Frankie not running that good. Because I know he's better than that. I firmly believe that Frankie's better than where he's been running. Alex Club, as we've seen of late, has really started and parked the last couple of races. They got a motor in the car that honestly should not be in there. They're kind of waiting to debut a new motor. Alex's Ilmore finally blew up for the last time. He couldn't repair it. So they got a motor in the car that will go, but it's not very fast. So to be on the safe side, they've started and parked the last couple of races, despite finishing that race at Duquion, which was pretty funny. They did start and park this race. I think they ran 1 lap in each session, only ran like 2 laps in the race. They're just there so they can be on like the B plan money to just get that bonus at the end of the year as well. Other nobles I'll say, probably one of the fastest I've seen Rita Goulet run. She was still 4.5 seconds off, but Rita Goulet actually wasn't the slowest. So she's actually making progress. So I'll give her that. I'll give Rita this. She's definitely, from where she was at this Milwaukee race last year to now, she's definitely improved a little bit. So that's what I'll give Rita Goulet at least. She has improved a little bit for sure. And like what I was saying about Rick Rettig Tackman, or RJ as they call him, he was 15th. Keep in mind, this is a Brad Smith car with an what is it? An SC1 motor. It's a very old motor. I think this was the one that Ken Schrader gave Brad, and he was 15th of the 23 cars. A very impressive run for RJ. He beat 3 fast track cars. He beat Brad, he beat Rita, and he beat Peterson, Dale, and Alex. And he was only 0.6 of a second off Tinkle. So it's like, God dang, for this kid being in his very first start, very impressed by RJ Tackman as well. So he was very impressive. And that was just great to see the 48 actually show some speed for once. And that's no dig at Brad. It's just Brad runs his car at a conservative pace. But when you see a guy like this step in and push that thing full song, you really see what the 48 is capable of. Then you ask yourself, well, why can't Brad do that on a weekly basis? He doesn't have the money to do that on a weekly basis. That's why. He just doesn't. William Sawalich would back it up in qualifying, nearly cracking the 28-second marker. The only car in the 125s. He won the pole by over 0.3 of a second. So you pretty much knew, man, that unless something happened to that car, William Sawalich was going to be the car to beat. All but one car took a qualifying lap. Brad didn't take a qualifying lap because, honestly, it doesn't really matter for him. We got to the race itself. And I'll be honest with you guys, like I said, there wasn't really a lot to say. And I'm not trying to be rude. It's just, I don't know. I like Milwaukee. but I think the one thing that we also need to know about Milwaukee is for a 1 mile track, it looks bigger than it really is. Milwaukee is, yes, it is only a 1 mile track, but it looks bigger than what you would think a 1 mile track would look like. So even with 23 cars, they got spread out very quickly. And obviously, you had the starting parks. We'll get through those right now. Brad had actually looked like he was only going to run 1 lap. He had come down pit road after the first lap. I don't know if that was to be a fake out or a cat and mouse game, but he would come back out. Alex Clubb pulled off after 2 laps. Dallas Freeway after 12 laps. John Garrett after 12 laps. That was a very surprising pull-off. Looks like they didn't even try to fix the car. I wish the fast track racing guys were watching this podcast. I really would like to know what happened to John. He appeared to have started and parked Watkins Glen and has appeared to have started and parked this one. So I hate to see John Garrett start and parking because he's done a pretty decent job. I mean, obviously it's his own equipment under fast track, but he's done a really decent job this year for his first full season. So I hope this isn't a sign of things to come, and I hope he can finish out the season strong. Brad would run 24 laps before he would pull off, and then everybody else tried to go the distance. William Sawalich and Jesse Love obviously were the class of the field. The 20 could hang with the 18 for about the first 5 or 10 laps, but again, I feel like with JGR, knowing this track, knowing the history of this track, JGR just, they're unbeatable with their setups, their long run setups. They were pulling away from the 20 by quite a bit, by about a 2-second lead, and they were like 10 seconds ahead of, I think, of third place at one point. I mean, these 2 cars absolutely are dominating the field. It's amazing to see, but then you have people online, and to an extent, I agree with them. To an extent, I agree with them. There were some people who posted some very honest takes. I will definitely say there were more takes or honesty that I kind of agree with. I really do think that there is a slight problem. Maybe ARCA needs a cost cap. I don't necessarily know how to say it. I don't necessarily know how to call it. But yeah, there was one person, I believe his name was Chesapeake Diecast. He's a really cool custom diecast maker. But he posted a thread that I necessarily did not disagree with. I do agree. NASCAR, they own the series. NASCAR does need, I feel like they need to do something with this series. Because I'll say this. My favorite part about the ARCA series, and I love Bill Venerini. Bill Venerini always says hi to me. He always says hi to me in the garage area. He always gets me a pat on the back. Billy can be Billy sometimes, but I've never had any issues with Billy. Love Billy Venturini. Some people don't, but I love Billy. I've never had any problems with him. But my favorite part of the ARCA garage is the back markers. It's one of the real reasons why I love this sport, guys. I remember watching this series when I was young. The Norm Bennings, Wayne Hickson, Bashams, Hilton, Peterson. Those were the guys that I rooted for every week, mainly because, you would see the fast guys go by, and then you'd see these slow guys coming. My brother and I would be standing on our feet cheering them on. We were having such a fun time with it. And then as I got older, I actually learned about these guys and respected them even more, that they weren't these, 15, 20, 30-year-olds. These guys were like 50, 60, 70 years old, which made it even more impressive. But what I'm trying to say is like, and you notice it too, the ARCA fan base loves the lower tier drivers more. I would say if ARCA still did the most popular driver award, I don't think they do that anymore. I would honestly say that Brad Smith is probably one of the most popular, if not the most popular ARCA driver right now. I really would say. And I agree with Alex right here in the chat. Why the heck would ARCA of all series need a 2-day show? Why? Why are we doing ARCA with a 2-day show? These teams cannot afford a 2-day show. They could barely afford that Hell Tour a couple weeks ago. If there's one thing I don't understand, it's that. For teams like Alex's 98 team with Dale Shear, Brad Smith, they can barely afford hotels. So I don't agree with that 2-day show. But, Chesapeake's thread, NASCAR, they got to try to get some more advancements into this series. Because it's true. Honestly, right now, outside of a super speedway, you probably are just going to see a Toyota win every week. That's not always a bad thing as long as we get good racing, but it's what you're mostly going to see. Obviously, TRD development has been putting in the most effort. That's why you're seeing the 20 and the 18 really run up front every week. And, he calls it like the series sort of a rent-a-ride pro-am series. The drivers competing for wins aren't running for a family team or trying to build a team or even bringing sponsors. They're just writing a check. Now, I believe Jesse Love is actually a TRD prospect. He's not necessarily paying to be there. They're actually putting him there. But I do agree. A lot of the great Chevrolet teams that we have seen are gone. Chad Bryant, he was a mixture of the Ford operations. DGR and Tricon were a mix of the Ford and Toyota. Brett Holmes' team was the Chevrolet. Schrader was Toyota. AJ Fike's team was Ford. You had a lot of mix of manufacturer teams and organizations, but unfortunately, those guys have either shut down or they've moved up to the truck series and other racing divisions. And we've been left with this. Now, it's not necessarily bad. I mean, even I would say some of the races between the 20 and the 18 have not been, have been great. Elko, even though it was a 2-car race at Elko, I thought that was a great race. But this one, like I said, guys, I did not personally enjoy it that much. I didn't. Like I said, the 28 team right now is the only non-Toyota team that remotely looks competitive. They still agree they should have won Watkins Glen. Now, he does say they're ridiculously cheated up. I don't necessarily go that far. The one thing I will say, though, is ARCA does not use the scanning station that NASCAR uses. The only ARCA tech is pretty serious at the plate tracks. I did ARCA tech at Daytona and Talladega. It takes forever because they tech those cars like crap. But at a race like Iowa, I can tell you, they tech their cars. They do. But they use the old school templates. And as we've seen in the past, like we saw, in the late 90s and early 2000s, it's very easy to fool those templates. It can be. It can be very easy to fool them if you're smart enough. And, clearly the 18 team and Venerini and maybe some of the other top teams have found the tricks. Obviously, I don't know what they are, and I'm just assuming, but more than likely they have found tricks that other teams haven't. Have you seen that Pocono? These cars are skewed like crazy, like the Cup cars used to be. So, yeah, there is a way to fool them in tech. It doesn't, unfortunately, it spikes up the competition. And that's where, again, I never liked the idea of a spec motor with the Ilmor and the Yates. But like he was saying too, there isn't really no incentive of creating a new ARCA team, unless you're going to go out there and just have some fun. If you're going to go out there and be a race-winning ARCA team, you got to spend just unbelievable loads of money that to the point you would probably just run trucks or even a C-tier level Xfinity operation. So I do agree with what he was saying a lot. NASCAR, you own the series, okay? Let's do something with it, all right? NASCAR said they want to create a developmental ladder series. You've got one right here. You've got a series that can be used through the developmental ladder. It's no longer independently owned. You own the series now. So I really hope NASCAR in the future can do something here, because if we're just letting ARCA kind of run its own operations, but we own it, come on here. And these purses, I know I've said it for years. NASCAR is a multi-million-dollar company. And yet we're still having these ARCA teams win $10,000 a race. We got to up that. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, fine. $10,000, fine. But at the end of the day, if we want these teams to survive, we got to get more money into this series. I'm not saying that these teams got to win $50,000 a race. Most truck races don't even pay that. But maybe $25,000 a race. Maybe that should be the benchmark. $25,000 wouldn't be a bad benchmark. And maybe you can up last place to $2,500. Last place, in my opinion, should not be any less than $2,500 no matter where we go. A $1,000 last place purse out of the dirt track this weekend, that's not acceptable anymore in 2023. It just isn't. With these times, with the inflation and crap, $1,000 ain't going to cut it. I mean, 15 years ago, it might have cut it, but it's not going to cut it today. We own the series. It's time to do something about it. Should we put a budget cap in there? I don't know. With the opportunity that Ilmore offers, that's where the advantage comes in for the 18 and the 20. They can swap out motors every week. Every team, if they could afford to do that, I'm sure they would. But obviously with how much Ilmore costs, they can't afford to do that. That's where you see some truck teams doing better than others. It's because some teams can afford to swap out Ilmores every single damn week, where you see some teams run the same engine 5 races in a row or put in an older motor. It's like that's all they got. So, I don't know, man. There's a lot of stuff to do, but this was one of those races where I feel like, well, here's the thing. 5K should be last minimum. Sometimes it's that low in the truck series too. There's some truck races that don't pay very well either. I can't get more into that, but still. Should there be some sort of cost cap? I don't know how you would enforce that though. I don't know how you would enforce something like that though. But I feel like this race really kind of overly pointed that out. That the 18 and the 20 clearly have the most money put in them, especially of the other Venturini cars. And at this rate, you'll never see any of the other 3 Venturini cars go up there and win the race. Gus Dean did not have the speed. Connor Jones did not have the speed. And Sean Hingorani did not have the speed. Neither of those 3 cars were going to win the race, just based off of practice and qualifying alone. We knew that coming in. And obviously, you got, of the 23 cars that were entered in this race, half of them probably were not even going to be competitive for the win anyway either. In my opinion, you got to make it some way affordable for everyone. But obviously, in the racing business, they don't do that. So, yeah, if you want to be competitive, you got to spend the money. And unfortunately, that's, that old term, cutthroat business. Even the racing business can be cutthroat. I wish I was going to Duquion. I'm sadly not. But we should also have, I don't know if we should have an ARCA All-Star race, but like I said, they're saying in the chat, I agree. Daytona should pay no less than $35,000 to $40,000. Maybe even $50,000, just because it's Daytona. I mean, come on. We're getting a sponsor for the race. You're telling me Brandt, one of the richest NASCAR sponsors we've ever seen, Brandt Agriculture, couldn't put a $50,000 purse to win this race? Like, come on. The Brandt 200 with Menard sponsorship. You're telling me they couldn't come up with $50K to give to the winner? Like, that should be easily doable. Easily doable. So, again, guys, I love this series. I love this series so much. It doesn't matter if Brandt was last minute. They got the money for it. But I love this series so much. But even I'm not afraid to admit when the series does not put on the best races and when the series is not looking in the best light. Last year, it was great. 2021, even with the Ty Gibbs stuff, 2021 was still a great year. 2022 was a really, really fun year. But this year, outside of a couple of races, has been okay, but definitely not where it was last year. And that's okay. You're going to have your up years and down years. But it was a race like this that really showed the top 2 teams compared to everybody else. And I didn't mean for this podcast to be mostly a rant, but I just feel like we needed to talk about it. I feel like we really need to talk about it, be honest with ourselves, be honest with you guys who watch this show every week, the people who have been here, since the, has been here since the beginning, or the new viewers of the show, who I appreciate. If if this is your first podcast you're tuning into, welcome to the show. It's not this negative every week. I promise you, it's not. Some of my old shows, we can get wild. We can have so much fun, but this is not one of the better races. I think Jesse Love will probably run a few ARCA races next year, but he's going full-time somewhere. I think he goes to Tricon next year, full-time truck. But yeah, looking back at the race, Sawalich, we had our first lead change on lap 26, 27 off Jesse Love actually beat William to the restart line, so technically got credited with leading that lap. He would lead for 2 laps, but then, like I said, it just became a common theme. Jesse Love could get out front for a couple laps, but then the 18 would get him right back. He would get out front for a couple laps, then get him right back. The only real cautions we had in the race were on lap 120, the 98 of Dale Shear stopped on the backstretch. And unfortunately, one of the sadder moments of the race, we had, with only about 15 laps to go, we had Ron Vandermeer Jr. Something broke on his 10 car and unfortunately hit the wall very, very hard. Yes, I did see that Brad got some sponsorship for Duquion. Gotta love it. I hated it for the 10 car. It's Ron's own team. It's his own car. Something broke, hit the car really bad, hit the wall really bad on the right side. And then just to add insult to injury, he slammed the nose right into the wall because I don't think he had any brakes. So car's pretty torn up. That's probably it for Ron's season. I don't know if we'll see him at Bristol now. Kind of sucks when you see someone crash and it's actually a backmarker team. But yeah, that was really the only real moment of the crasher moment of the race. The final 9-lap dash, that's really where all the action happened. Jesse Love knew he had to get to him, so he got the 18 loose going into turn 1, got the lead. William Sawalich, though, you could tell he wanted this win back. He was not going to be pushed around by the 20 car again, so the 20 gets moved by the 18 going into turn 1 and 2. Great short track race in there. And then probably the funniest moment of the race, Jesse Love, the next lap, tried to throw it into turn 1. And you could tell by the way that Jesse was throwing his car into turn 1, Jesse was going to outright dump the 18. Like if he had hit the 18 car, the 18 was going to go into the wall and be destroyed. That's how serious Jesse Love was going to run into turn 1. But he missed and pretty much killed whatever he had left, and it was not going to catch him. Meanwhile, while that was happening, Luke Fenhaus had made his way up to 3rd, or was trying to. Now, of course, Luke Fenhaus is in the E-Series championship battle, so he's trying to gain as many points as he can, not lose as many points as he can. He is on the outside of Connor Jones, who we've seen Connor Jones kind of pull some questionable moves in the last couple races he has run. And honestly, I'll say I saw this coming from a mile away. Luke Fenhaus gives, Connor Jones plenty of room, and Connor just slides right up into him. Luckily, didn't cut a tire, but killed all of Luke's momentum. And unfortunately, he basically went from 3rd all the way back down to 9th. And thankfully, he recovered to 6th. But those vital 3 or 4 points may have unfortunately sealed the fate for Fenhaus's E-Series championship, sadly. I hate to say that, but that's pretty much the truth. It kind of sealed the fate for his E-Series championship, unless a miracle happens at Bristol. But yeah, Luke Fenhaus would finish 6th. William Sawalich, like I said, would pick up. Surprising fact, this was William Sawalich's only his 2nd win this season in the main division. Really shocking to hear that the 18 cars only won 2 races this season. It's a weird fact, isn't it? Connor Mosek has not won any races in the 18, but it's so hard to believe that the 18 car only has 2 wins in the main division this year. With how competitive the 18 has been, and they only have, 2 East wins? Like, definitely not the season that William Sawalich was probably expecting. For sure. I expected them to win almost every single race like the 18 car usually does. But unfortunately, it's really been anything but that. And they've been bitten by Luke Fenhaus quite a bit. So, yeah, and we've definitely seen now that VMS is more than willing to take out that 18. Yeah, and Connor Jones was actually having a really good race, but then he just, he did that moment. There was a confrontation post-race. Rightfully, and I commend Connor Jones for doing this. He got out of his car, went over to the 28, apologized. Luke Fenhaus obviously was not happy about it. And Shane Huffman was pissed. He was pissed off, and rightfully so. You're running for a championship, and you get taken out by a guy who's not running for the championship. I can understand the frustration. And all this crap about, people like, oh, he's a minor. It's like, oh, come on. Okay, fine. Yeah, Connor Jones is still a minor. Fine. But come on, guys. I understand he's not going to assault the kid. He's not. But it's like, oh, God, yelling at a minor? Oh, come on. He's driving a full-size race car, okay? We're going to treat him like everyone else. Obviously, we're not going to assault the kid. We can't. We should never assault drivers. I'm not calling for that. But let's not treat Connor like he's a 10-year-old kid, okay? If you're driving a full 3,400-pound race car, you're going to be treated like everyone else. Obviously, no fights, but if you're going to get yelled at, you're going to get yelled at. But I see so many people just saying a stink about this, like saying, oh, Shane Huffman shouldn't have done that. But come on, guys. He's not going to fight the kid. Shane Huffman's not that stupid. But God forbid he yells at a minor. Oh, no. Connor Jones can take it. He's already been yelled at before by many people, it seems like. So, I don't know why people had such a big stink about that. God forbid someone yells at a minor for doing something wrong. I don't know. That just seems stupid to me. Did Connor Jones deserve it? Depends on what your opinion is. As a Luke Fenhaus fan, I didn't like it, but at the end of the day, it's racing. It's not like he got into him on purpose. It wasn't on purpose. That's the one thing I'll say. The move between Connor Jones and Luke Fenhaus, that was not on purpose. I believe, Luke was on his outside, and it was just your classic case of Connor just got loose. I think it wasn't on purpose. So, that was kind of that incident. The rest of the field, Sean Hingorani managed third. Connor Jones, like I said, he ended up fourth. So a decent day for Venturini. Grant Enfinger fifth. Luke Fenhaus, like I said, sixth. A very quiet day for Rev Racing. Seventh and eighth, not the day that they were looking for. Jake Finch was ninth. Not the best performance out of him either. Same with Gus Dean, only 10th. Christian Rose, 11th. Frankie Muniz, 12th. They really struggled. Again, those are Ford factory cars. And, they've struggled this season. Zachary Tinkle, 14th. RJ Tackman, Zachary Tinkle, 13th. RJ Tackman, 14th. Tim Monroe, in a very rare full race appearance, ran 15th. AJ Moyer was 16th. And Rita Goulet was the last car running in 17th. Again, in my opinion, not the best ARCA race of all time, but not the best. It's really all I can say. I give it 5 out of 10. I think that's a fair call. Just hope NASCAR does something with this series. I really do. We can't just let the series, stay a sad death like this. And I do hate it when I see late model drivers making fun of the series too. It's like, late model racing has gotten ridiculous too with their prices. You just don't notice it as much because it's not on public TV as much. ARCA's never going to die. We'll say that, though. ARCA, at this point, with the way stuff might be going, ARCA might outlive the Xfinity Series. ARCA, honestly, might outlive the Xfinity Series. Because right now, Xfinity, they got no sponsor. They have no sponsor for next year. ARCA will outlive the Xfinity Series. I could see that happening. The East Series standings, we'll talk about those right now. Again, pretty much we need a miracle to happen at Bristol. Luke Fenhaus is 20 points behind. Again, losing all those precious points pretty much killed him. Now, we do have an expected 25 to 35 plus car field scheduled for Bristol. Pretty decent sized car count scheduled for Bristol. There is a possibility that he could still win the championship, but it would definitely take the 18 crashing out for that to happen. Do I see that happening? No. So I'm not going to give it to him straight away. There's always a chance, but it's a shame. The 18 the 28 just kind of struggled in the first couple races, but man, after that win at Nashville, they just clicked. They just wish they would have clicked a little bit earlier. But still, an amazing run nonetheless out of the Pinnacle Racing Group. Luke Fenhaus, LeVar Scott, Zachary Tinkle, Tim Monroe have kind of settled into their top 5 spots. Sean Hingorani, it's kind of going to be a pretty close battle between Dale Scheer, Tim Monroe, and Sean Hingorani. They're all separated by 19 points. Obviously, they're trying to get Tim Monroe staying inside that top 5. So maybe Tim Monroe might run the whole race at Bristol, or might do something at Bristol to try to keep him in the top 5 in the E-Series points. The E-Series Owners Championship battle, obviously with the 18, they ink out their lead even more. 15-point lead for the E-Series Owners Championship battle. So one thing I'll say is this. When we see that Bristol race, it's going to get ugly. I got a feeling that the Bristol race, ARCA race, will be the most chaotic ARCA race of the absolute year. So I cannot imagine how much chaos that race is going to bring, and I'm very excited for that one. The driver standings in the main division, I mean, like I said, we know Jesse Love's going to win the championship, over 120-point lead right now. Andres Perez de Lara is back into second. Frankie Muniz down to third. Christian Rose is settled into fourth. John Garrett's settled into fifth. AJ Moyer's settled into sixth. I mean, everyone's kind of settled into their own position right now. William Sawalich, who's only run 9 races this season, is now 8th in points, which is kind of funny. So he's still got a shot at a top 10 points finish. The Owners Championship, again, with the 18, they're still gaining ground, man. The 18 right now has a whopping 20, still has, a 40-point lead. 40 points, wow. 40 points in the Owners Championship. So, again, I would expect to see Venerini start to get dirty. I don't want to put things, on the table, but if we see that 20 car getting extra dirty in the next couple of races, don't be shocked. Don't be shocked at all, is all I'm going to say. I do think the rest of this ARCA season, after the final couple of short tracks, will be absolute chaos. So I do think we're in for something special, even though, like I said, some of these races this season haven't been the best. So that was ARCA at Milwaukee. Hopefully next year's race will put on a little bit better, I would say, for the fans. But we have our next race, Duquion, the other dirt race of the season. The Southern Illinois 100, the dirt race that is at night. Yes, it is at night. Gotta love that. Dirt race, 1 mile oval dirt track race at night. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. 18 cars, same amount of cars that we had at Springfield. Couple of different entries. We got the 2 of Andres Perez de Lara, the 8 of Sean Corr, Clayton Weatherman, Kyle Weatherman's brother. Yes, Clayton Weatherman. Remember him? He is back in the number 10. Dallas Freeway in the 11. We got Tim Monroe, who will be the full race car in the 12. 15 of Sean Hangarani, the 16 of Kelly Kovsky. Of course, they run the dirt races. William Sawalich, Jesse Love, of course, Brett Cruz, Frankie Muniz, Brayton Laster, the pizza man, is back in the 31. Christian Rose in the 32, Brad Smith in the 48, John Garrett in the 66. Will Kimmel, he's running this race in the 69. Chris Golden in the 03 for Alex Clubb, and the 06 of AJ Moyer with Bucked Up. Yes, Bucked Up, the former Joe Graff Jr. sponsor, will be on Wayne Peterson's car. So how about that? Would you expect to see Bucked Up on Wayne Peterson's car? Neither did I. But are you happy too? Yes, I am. Yes, I am. So 18 cars there. If you do notice an absence, Dale Quarterly was scheduled to enter this race, but unfortunately his car was killed at Springfield. Unfortunately, chassis was bent up pretty bad. I'm not even sure if the car is going to run again. But Dale Quarterly was supposed to enter this race, unfortunately, to withdraw his entry due to the car being, pretty much destroyed. Still a pretty solid field here. Brett Cruz obviously going for the $34K bonus for winning both races. Going for that bonus. So Venarini's got something to shoot for. We'll see how no Ken Schrader, but we'll see how Tim Monroe does. He got a good start here on the dirt. Hopefully, Duquion will actually go well. I mean, who could forget the absolute dirt fest that was in 2021 when all the field, we only had six of the 16 cars finished the race because the track was destroying everyone. 2022 was chaos because of the rain. It's probably the first time in a while that the Duquion race will go on as scheduled. 2021 was track prep crap, And last year we were canceled by the rain. Ryan Unzinger obviously won that race last year in a feel-good moment. And even in that race, nine of the 21 cars ended up actually finishing that race. So, yeah, like I said, these dirt races are definitely pretty rough on the lower tier teams. The starting parks for this one, AJ Moyer might try to go the distance, but if they're smart, I would have AJ start and park this one. Brad Smith will obviously start and park. And Dallas Freeway. So those 3 cars will probably be your starting parks. Everybody else will run the whole race. My pick to win the race is Brent Cruz. I think he's going to go to the double. My underdog pick, I'll take Sawalich. I think Sawalich might get up there too. So, Tim Monroe, he runs the full race at Duquion. So, I think it'll be a better race than Springfield for sure. Duquion, especially at night, the dirt is so much cooler, got more grip. I think this race will be better than Springfield for sure. It actually also will be run on a Sunday, along with the Southern 500. So, while you're watching the Southern 500, I'll probably be watching this race too. I'll probably have the Southern 500 on the TV, and I'll have this race going on my computer. So it's on Sunday on FS2 at 9 p.m. Eastern. So, yeah, like I said, right in the middle of the Southern 500 will be this race. First place is, again, just $6,000. We got to get that pay up, man. That's a Bush League level payout. We're better than that. And last place, $1,000 for 18th. Highest total money earned can be $14.5K with all contingency awards. So, yeah, guys, Duquion, it's going to be a lot of fun. Again, I love these dirt races. If I can, I would love to run these races next year when I get my ARCA stuff going. But like I said, obviously that's all up in the air. Got to get the license first. So, boy, somehow I made it 47 minutes. If you guys have kind of noticed me tonight and I haven't looked as right, it's because I'm not. I mean, kind of under the weather. My throat's on fire right now. I'm not the best right now. Well, honestly, contemplating not doing the podcast tonight, but I wanted to do it for you guys. But the fact that I made it 47 minutes, I guess I'm in pretty decent shape after all. But yeah, guys, I'm going to get out of your hairs again because that's 47 minutes is all I could give you. So I'm going to get out of your hairs, guys. I got to take some special medicine. I got to eat a dinner and enjoy the race weekend, guys. I love Darlington. Enjoy the race. Enjoy Darlington. Enjoy Duquion. And we'll be back here on Tuesday for either backmarker battles or the ARCA Racing podcast. If the ARCA entry list comes out, we'll be here for the ARCA podcast. If not, we'll do backmarker battles. But we'll see you all next week, Tuesday, 7 p.m. Central Time live. If you haven't liked and subscribed to the channel, please do. And, Colby Evans, starting park car. I'm signing off, guys. You have a good rest of your night. Bye-bye.